much on this, but it was one of the first sort of versions of synthesizers, because it was a collection of little cassette tapes. Each cassette tape had a note of something like violins, or which went round and round and round. Only lasted for 5 seconds, so if you ever played this thing, you had to keep changing the chord voicings, because after 5 seconds the note would just stop. So there was a little bit of a knack in playing it. But John Lennon had left his brand new Mellotron there in the studio, and I jumped on it. I mean, not literally, but you know, I jumped to actually play. I didn't ask John, so I'm really sorry, John. But I used it, and as luck would have it, we became one of the first bands to make it a signature on one of the albums that came out in the 60s. And it became known as one of the signature sounds of Odessey and Oracle. And they left other things behind as well. They left also technical advances, because Lennon had walked in and said, we've just been knocked out in the last few months by Pet Sounds, the Brian Wilson album, the Beach Boys album. And he said, that was recorded on 8-track, we've got to do our new album on 8-track. And they said, well, there's not an 8-track in the country. You know, it's just 4 tracks. And John said, well, sort it out, and went home. So the sort of boffins in Abbey Road sort of stayed up all night, and in the morning they'd worked out a way of using 2 4-track machines in sync with each other, so that you didn't get an extra 4 tracks, because that one of them had to be in sync with the other machine, but you did get 2 or 3 extra tracks. And this was like manna from heaven in those days to us. I mean, nowadays you record on digital stuff and you can have 100 tracks, but in those days that was just fantastic. So we'd recorded Odessey and Oracle because it was sort of in the air that we might break up, and Chris and I, who were the 2 writers in the band, Chris White and I, said, you know, if the band does break up, we've been so frustrated with the way our recent singles have been produced, that we've got to get our own ideas of our own songs down. And so we went to a record company and said, will you give us some money so we can produce a record ourselves? And it might work or it might not, because we've never produced anything ourselves before. But we would love to try it and at least get our own ideas of how our songs would sound. So we recorded Odessey and Oracle, and we had 2 fantastic engineers, Peter Vince and Jeff Emmerich. And Jeff, for instance, did Time of the Season, and he was magic to work with, but so was Peter. I mean, they were really great. We had a ball, and because we had very little money, we had to go in there and actually really prepare what we were doing. So we practiced and practiced, because we would run out of money very quickly. So we would generally finish a track in about an hour and a half. The backing part of the track, the main core of it. But then, because of the Beatles, we had an extra couple of tracks on there. So any spontaneous ideas that we might have outside of what we practiced, we could just throw onto the machine. And I remember on Time of the Season, we'd recorded it as we planned, and it had a backbeat on it, do do do, cha, like that. But I said to Hugh, do you know what, Hugh? I can hear one side of the backbeat and on the other side. And he said, well, go and give it a go. I said, you sure? He said, yeah, give it a go. Once through, and we put that on. And strangely enough, that became one of the signatures of the actual song.
Yeah!
And there were many moments like that. There were harmonies that we prepared and we put down, and then having heard it back, we heard extra harmonies, and we would just whiz into the studio and put an extra thing on the top. That happened on Changes and on other tracks as well. So it was brilliant, and at the end of that, we thought we made the best album we could. We were over the moon that we'd actually got an album that actually seemed to represent what we had in our heads when we wrote the songs. And then, of course, the record came out in the UK, didn't do anything at all. It wasn't even going to be accepted in the US, but Al Cooper, who was the hottest producer at the time, went to Clive Davis and said, I've picked up 200 albums in the UK, and and there's only one I think you have to buy, whoever's got it, and that's Odessey and Oracle. And he said, and Clive said, well, we've got it, but we've passed on it. He said, well, you can't pass on it, you had to put it out. And there wasn't much enthusiasm for it, but it came out, and then they put the first single out, which did nothing. They put the second single out, a Chris White track, which I love, but was never a single in a million years. It was called Butcher's Tale. It was about the First World War, and it was like an anti-war song. And then Alan said, you have to release Time of the Season. And they said, no, it's not commercial. We're not going to release that. But in the end, he said, look, you've got to release it. So they said, okay. And they put no fanfare behind it. They put it out. Nothing happened. But one guy in Idaho, in Boise, Idaho, this one DJ started to play it, and he would not stop playing it. And in the way that things could happen in those days, it was like throwing a stone into a pool and the ripples going out. And gradually, other DJs got interested in the reaction it was getting, and it suddenly caught fire. And it shot to #1 in the Cashbox charts, #2 in the Billboard. And you know, it was #1 in Cashbox on the very day it was published was 50 years to the day when we were inducted and played our concert in the Rock and Roll. So, you know, it's a kind of story. And even at the time, the album came out, and even with Time of the Season being #1, the album didn't really sell very much. It made the top 100, but it didn't really sell very much. Now, for year in, year out, it sells more every year than it ever did in those days. It just doesn't stop selling. It's a fantastic story for us. So we felt we had to do maybe 5 songs from Odessey and Oracle. And we're going to start with the first track on side 1, which is called Care of Cell 43.